Houston's economy is strong and diverse, but to maintain that foundation, Houston needs students with the education and tools to compete in today's global economy. Unfortunately, our students face a major obstacle: an outdated school finance system that is forcing HISD to slash budgets for the coming school year, impacting class sizes, tutoring, and educational programs across our city. It's all because HISD is subject to sending $162 million of local property taxes to the state. On November 8th, local voters will be given the option of authorizing the $162 million payment, which would be made in the form of attendance credits. If authorized by voters, HISD will begin making annual recapture payments for the foreseeable future. If voters don't authorize the purchase of attendance credits, then the Texas Education Agency will detach commercial property from HISD and reassign it to the tax rolls of other districts, unless the Texas legislature makes changes to the school finance system when it reconvenes in 2017. You might wonder what the problem is. After all, your school tax bill keeps rising every year, and local tax dollars are supposed to be used to educate Houston's children, right? Well, not exactly. Due to rising property values, the state considers HISD to be property wealthy. Even though almost 80% of our students are economically disadvantaged, and 1/3 are learning English. An outdated school finance system, commonly referred to as Robin Hood, which is based on rising property values, has caused HISD to go into something called Recapture. Under Recapture, HISD must send $162 million to the state. $162 million equates to 11 cents of every local property tax dollar leaving Greater Houston. That's more than $500,000 per school. $500,000 could fund a librarian, a counselor, a nurse, 3 teachers, and a library full of books. Instead of your tax dollars staying in your schools, HISD must send millions to the state to pay for public education. By relying on your local property tax dollars, the state can put less money into public education, despite its constitutional obligation to fund schools. The responsibility for funding Texas schools has shifted away from the state to districts like HISD. In fact, under Recapture, HISD will send the state more than it receives in state aid. And while the original intent of Robin Hood and Recapture was to level the playing field for all school districts, it is instead leaving some behind. In 1994, Texas ranked 36th in per-student funding. Today, Texas ranks 43rd. Most families understand that each year, the cost of living increases. Well, so does the cost of educating. That $162 million is not extra. It's essential to support the district's efforts to remain competitive. And as the cost of educating has increased over the years, HISD has gotten less and less funding from the state. Now, HISD is paying Texas, and HISD is not alone. In 1994, when Recapture began, just 32 school districts across Texas paid a total of $127 million to the state. About 20 years later, 8 times as many school districts sent more than $1 billion to the state. Even though HISD is considered property wealthy by the state, the district faces unique challenges some other property wealthy districts do not. Almost 80% of HISD students come from low-income households. Almost 1/3 are learning English, and many require special education or are at risk of failing or dropping out. Bottom line, our students require more resources in the classroom, and we need those local tax dollars to provide those resources. Many components of Texas's school funding system haven't been updated since 1984. Not since the first Apple Macintosh went on sale, CD players were introduced, and Ronald Reagan won re-election. But the landscape of public education and the makeup of Houston and the state of Texas certainly has changed. more state mandates, more accountability, and fewer resources to meet those tougher standards. So what can be done? Back in 2011, HISD, along with 600 school districts across Texas, filed a lawsuit demanding an updated system that would provide adequate and equitable funding for all students. The Texas Supreme Court in 2016 ruled that the current system is constitutional, meaning it meets the minimum constitutional standards for funding education. However, the court also said that students, quote, deserve transformational top-to-bottom reforms that amount to more than Band-Aid on top of Band-Aid. On November 8th, local voters will be given the option of authorizing HISD's $162 million recapture payment. If authorized by voters, HISD will begin making annual recapture payments for the foreseeable future. That means sending over $1 billion of local tax dollars to the state in the next 4 years alone. If voters do not authorize the payment, HISD will face the detachment of property next July. Under detachment, the Texas Education Agency will detach the most valuable parcels of HISD's commercial property and reassign those properties to other school districts in Texas. Then, these properties will most likely be taxed at a higher rate, since HISD has one of the lowest property tax rates in the state. Now that you know more about recapture, it's time to speak up. However you feel about this issue, it's time to make your opinion known. Call your board members, call your state legislators, call the governor, lieutenant governor, and Speaker of the House. Share this video on social media. For more information, visit HoustonISD.org/recapture.